You know, there's a game in my Steam library that I bought over 10 years ago for over $100 US. And I bought the full deluxe edition. I pre-ordered it and everything. And I put over 1,000 hours into this game. It's called The Crew 1. And for those of you who don't know, if you're on my channel, you more than likely know what The Crew is. I mean, going back years, I've made hundreds of videos on The Crew 1, dating back well over a decade. Like, you go back on my channel over 10 years ago, I have videos talking. I was making content on The Crew before it even came out. Like the game being delayed or, you know, news about The Crew, the system requirements, which this video still gets views, which is insane. Like 10 years later for a game that doesn't work anymore. So safe to say, I have a very strong connection with the Stop Killing Games movement, and I just absolutely love what they're doing. Not just because the game that kind of spurred this entire movement was one of my favorite games, but because the initiative just as a whole can lead to the betterment of just the gaming community and the types of games we get. I'm sick to death of every game being a huge live service that takes 10 years to develop, and then when they don't perform well, they end up shutting the studio. I want to see a gaming space. I want to see a gaming space, not just with racing games, but with just games in general, where we get smaller games that don't take 45 fucking years to develop. And I want to see games that are smaller, take maybe a year or two, maybe 3 years at most to develop, aren't riddled to death with microtransactions, and aren't built around an always online ecosystem. Now, obviously, the Stop Killing Games movement isn't aiming at, like, forcing developers to make certain types of games or anything like that. That's not at all what it's about. It's about making sure that when games that are always online are taken offline, that there's always some sort of offline ability to be able to play the game that you bought with real money, even after the servers are well offline. Protections to be able to make it so you can have offline servers or community-driven servers so that the game can live on and be preserved long after the servers have gone offline. And we've seen this happen a couple times in the racing game space. Need for Speed World's a prime example where the game only lasted 5 years. It got shut down over 10 years ago, which is that makes me feel old just saying that. But the game got shut off 10 years ago. And what had happened was a bunch of people in the Need for Speed World community got together and started building their own custom servers for the game. And now Need for Speed World has literally lasted in its post shutdown state and has blossomed. Like, the game has unironically got better with community servers than it was when it was literally alive, like, in being run actively. But that's the whole premise. That's the whole spiel behind the Stop Killing Games movement. And I think it's a fantastic movement. It's led by a fantastic guy. Ross is absolutely fantastic. And it's just the whole gaming community coming together to preserve the medium, you know? And we just saw Anthem's being taken offline. Now, I honestly thought Anthem was taken offline a while ago. I didn't realize the servers were still online. But Anthem's being taken offline, and even though most people, in the court of public opinion, that game is regarded as dog shit and, like, not good, there's people out there who like that game. So why should it be destroyed? Like, why should it just be left in an offline state? I mean, it's the same thing with The Crew. There's tons of people who think The Crew's dog shit. It's just a dog shit game. But why shouldn't it be preserved? You know? And that's where the whole Stop Killing Games movement is coming in. And and the movement's just got a huge boost in support, which is absolutely fantastic, from Moist Critical. I know Critical, some ordinary gamers were big proponents of this movement from the beginning. But yeah, Stop Killing Games has gone mainstream, which we absolutely love to see. Everybody's talking about it. Moist Critical, some ordinary gamers, PewDiePie's talking about it now. There's a lot of support being thrown behind it. The initiative in the EU initiative just hit over 1.2 million signatures as of me recording this video. And while that reaches the 1 million vote threshold, Ross is pointing out that there's probably a lot of duplicates, a lot of invalid signatures, people just not filling it out correctly. And there's probably some fraud in there as well. People who don't live in the EU signing the petition for the EU, and you can't do that. It's a petition that it's an official government petition that you can only sign if you live within Europe or the EU. And if your country's not listed, as I'm wiping out here, just caught a little grass there. If you don't live in the EU, your country's not listed on that website in the drop-down menu, you can't sign the petition. And that includes the United Kingdom, but there also is a United Kingdom petition that's doing very well right now as well. And now because it's gone mainstream, this has led some lobbying groups and some industry groups based in Europe that are around like video games to put out statements trying to curtail the movement. And it's typical just lawyer mumbo jumbo, just typical, lobbying speak, I guess you could say. We appreciate the passion of our community. However, the decision to discontinue online services is multifaceted, never taken lightly. It must be an option for companies when an online experience is no longer commercially viable. We understand that it can be disappointing for players, but when it does happen, the industry ensures that players are given fair notice of the prospective changes in compliance with local consumer protection laws. Private servers are not always a viable alternative option for players, as the protections we put in place to secure players' data, remove illegal content, and combat unsafe community content would not exist and would leave right holders liable. And this really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Sure, custom servers are going to be able to put things in their servers that like the regular developers wouldn't put in. For example, Need for Speed World. A lot of the community servers in the Need for Speed World nowadays have cars that were never added to Need for Speed World in the first place. They were modded in. So the developers are adding brand new cars to Need for Speed World. There's a ton of servers on Gary. Now, obviously, Gary's mod is still like up and running, but the servers on Gary's mod are all community driven. Gary's mod had problems with these RP servers that were based in 1930s Germany. And I don't think I really need to explain the type of content that was found on those servers. But needless to say, the people behind Gary's mod basically put a stop to that. So there's nothing even when community servers are still like alive and running for a game that's dead, there's nothing stopping the rights holders from filing DMCA claims to get that type of nonsense off the servers. But no one's gonna be sitting here and saying when there's no support for a game and there's the community basically taking it over, no one's gonna be sitting here going, oh, it's the rights holders, it's EA, it's Nintendo, it's all these people that are putting this type of nonsense into the game. That's not what it is. It's a big cop-out answer. In addition, many titles are designed from the ground up to be online only. In effect, these proposals would curtail developer choice by making these video games prohibitively expensive to create. We welcome the opportunity to discuss our position with policymakers and those who have led the European Citizens Initiative in the coming months. And they're also saying how it's going to give developers less choice in what type of games they want to make. It would basically make games harder to be always online live service games. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm against that. I don't want more always online MMO live service games. I want less of those. This leads, like I said, I was talking about, I want like smaller games in the future. This leads developers to kind of go towards making smaller games that aren't meant to be live services. I'm all for that. That's a fantastic byproduct of the Stop Killing Games movement. But I think since Stop Killing Games has gone mainstream, it is really interesting seeing these lobbying groups kind of come after the movement and try and stop it. I mean, this is just the beginning. From Pirate Software, who I think just at this point, he's not arguing good faith, to these lobbying groups coming out trying to stop the movement. I think this is just the beginning of the resistance we're going to see. And I think it's only going to get tougher from here. It's a big uphill battle. As much as we have a ton of movement behind us, we got a ton of motion in this campaign. They're going to try every step of the way to take the wind out of our sails, and you just got to be prepared. But if we stick together and we see through their bullshit, we can end up coming out the other side with a gaming community and a industry that just treats us better, and just doesn't take us for idiots. And it really makes me worry about games like Need for Speed 2015. I love Need for Speed 2015, Obviously, the Need for Speed I play is very heavily modified, So there's already a big modding community for Need for Speed 2015, which gives me hope in the event that the EA shuts the game down without an offline patch. I have a good feeling that the community would be able to whip something up. But on the other hand, I'm very scared that they're gonna just shut that game down at some point without a way to play it, which is very scary to think. But we could be wrong. EA could just say, hey, we're going to be shutting down 2015, but before we do that, we're issuing an offline patch. At the end of the day, it sucks we won't be able to play it online anymore, but it's a 10-year-old game at this point, and if we're able to get an offline match, we'll be able to still mod the game, we'll be able to still play it, and we'll still be able to enjoy the vibes of Ventura Bay, because that Need for Speed 2015, the vibes are just unmatched in that game. EA is pretty good with letting us mod games post end of life. Need for Speed World, from what I understand, they're A-okay with people continuing that game's legacy as long as they really aren't making a profit from it. And then there's a Command & Conquer game, I believe, a couple years ago that went offline, and developers were actively supporting the community, bringing that game back from the dead. So I'm hoping that when the day comes for Need for Speed 2015, there'll be an easy way to continue the game's legacy and play the game, preserve the game when that time comes. But this is like a big topic that it's been on my mind for a while. I wanted to talk about it. I had to get all dressed up for it. Totally didn't just come from work and record a video. I totally got dressed up for this video. But realsies, this movement's gotta last. We've gotta keep moving forward. There's gonna be a lot of obstacles in our way. It's still a very uphill battle, so we just gotta keep fighting for it. And if you're an American like me, if you're a dumb Yank like me, the best thing you could do is just spread the word. If you know somebody in Europe who hasn't signed it, but they can, get their ass signing, and just honestly, just spread the word. That's the best thing we could do as we park up here in Mount Wilson. But that's it for me tonight. Thank you all for hanging out with me, and I will see you all in my next video. Have a good night, everyone.